All right, good morning. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. I'll just wait a quick second. So my name is Paul. I'm a teacher, among other things. Yeah, great to see you all. So we're doing something a little bit different today. This is our Dharma talk time. Normally the Dharma talks are given by what are considered to be the advanced teachers. There's four of them, but they're not always available because they're very busy because they're volunteers as teachers. They have families, they have jobs, you know, all the stuff of life. So Lama Kathy asked me to fill in, which I'm very happy to do. But what I'm doing today, though, that's a little different. This will be class 5 of our Intro to Buddhism series. So instead of doing it downstairs in the classroom, we're doing it up here in the shrine room. So we're kind of doing double duty that way. So this is our Dharma talk for today, as well as the class. If you've been taking the classes, hopefully you know that the Intro to Buddhism classes are not given in any particular order. Each one stands alone, so this will be fine for you and relevant for you if you haven't taken the first 4 classes. And for some of you, you've been around here and been practicing for a while. This may seem like familiar territory. And I mentioned that to Lama Kathy when we talked about me doing this. I was saying, well, a lot of folks up there probably heard this a time or two. But her feeling is, and she ought to know, that the material is important enough and basic and fundamental enough that it very, very much bears repeating. And it's, in my mind, mysterious and subtle enough so it bears repeating, trying to understand what this really is. So the topic is Buddha nature. And this is a class that I'm happy to teach because to me, it kind of goes to the heart of it all, and it's full of mystery and complexity. And the whole idea of Buddha nature, I think, is one of the things that hooked me into Buddhism, and it got me interested in Buddhism to begin with. So I'm happy to teach it here. And then let me just say then, whether this is new to you or whether it's familiar or over-familiar, hopefully you'll be able to get something out of it, which is the whole point. So for our classes up here at 11:30, we always start with a refuge prayer. So what we can do, we can say it together twice in English, and then we always say it a third time as well. And this time we can just chant it in Tibetan. And on this sheet, the refuge prayer on one side of the sheet, it's in English and it's also in Tibetan, but it's transliterated, so it's easy to say it along. Because I don't know about you, my Tibetan is rusty, so like the rest of me. Okay. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and the other good deeds, I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and the other good deeds, I achieve enlightenment for the sake of being. Sangye Jam Dang So Ki Cham La Jang Chu Bardu Agni Kip Su Chi Dag Ji Jin So Ibe So Nangi Throw off and cheer some J whose heart. All right. Good, and that gets us off to a good start. Reminds us of what we're here for. For those of you who are taking this series of Intro to Buddhism classes, there are handouts that normally go with the class. If you want them, you can pick them up afterwards. You could also, all this material is online. If you go to the KTC website, great website, columbusktc.org. If you go under, there's little, choices up at the top. You pick resources and you pick a library. All this stuff, all the handouts for all the classes, including Class 5, Buddha Nature, are there for you to enjoy, to read, to print, to do what you like. But anyway, if you want them, pick them up later. And if you, just to let you know, also, if you are doing the attendance thing, classes, then at the end of this, you can come up and just scan this QR code. And you can indicate that you were here. And when you finish all the classes, you will get a small gift, a token of our appreciation, I think a certificate of completion, and you get bragging rights. So, and the ego likes nothing more. And we're going to be talking about that. Okay, so I think a lot of you know me, some don't, and this is going to be very brief because it's not about me, I promise that. But I've been hanging out here at KTC for about a dozen years, and it's been a really good experience for me. So I'm very pro KTC. I like it here, and that's why I volunteer. And in the past 2 years or so, I've been volunteering as a teacher. I've been teaching classes, the Sunday morning classes on meditation and on Buddhism. And recently, I've also done a couple of these Dharma talks up in the shrine room. So this will be my third. I assume you can hear me okay? I'm never sure where this thing needs to be placed. Okay, I think it's okay then. I'm just going to try and ignore it. So anyway, and as I think I was saying before, this is a very kind of an interesting and special topic to me. So we're going to talk about Buddha nature, what it is, what it isn't, and what we do about it. So I like this because it's so full of mystery and it's so fundamental. Buddha nature, as described by, of course, the Buddha, has to do with fundamentally, deep down inside, at the deepest, profoundest level, who and what we are. Who and what we are. So what mystery is there that's more interesting and more challenging than that? Who and what we really are. Oops. It's almost as challenging as keeping this thing on my head. Excuse me, just a little bit unfamiliar with this device. Let me make sure I might have had it wrong. Okay. I think that's better. Okay. All right. Modern tech. So let's talk about Buddha nature. It's got some very, very interesting things about it. According to the Buddha, it's our truest nature, and it is unborn, and it is undying. So it's the core of who and what we are, but the Buddha said it was this thing has always been and will always be. So it's not just something that's in us, it's part of everything, but also part of us. Unborn and undying. That's a little hard to imagine. It's the same for each of us. We all have Buddha nature. It's all the same according to the Buddha. So it's more than anything else. It's what binds us together. In a sense, there is one Buddha nature that we all share and we all tap into and experience. It's the ultimate binder and connector. It's a reminder that despite what we think, there is nothing solid that separates us. And all the fuss, well, we'll get to that, the fuss. The fuss comes later. It's perfect as it is. Buddha says, when it comes right down to it, we are absolutely perfect. We are fine. Now that's a kind of an interesting thing too. That gets my attention because you look around the world and it doesn't seem like we're fine. Well, Buddha talked about that too, and we'll discuss that. I'll discuss that. Buddha said, you're perfect as you are. All you have to do is develop that. You're perfect as you are, but despite your perfection, you have a lot of work to do. We all have a lot of work to do. So you have to get out of your own way, realize who and what you are, practice from that perspective, and you'll suffer less, and you'll be kinder, gentler, more compassionate. And people around you will suffer less. The whole world can suffer less. Okay, just another thing to add. From this perspective, we're not born sinful, we're not born damaged, we're born perfect. And we don't need, Buddhists don't believe that we need to rely on some kind of higher spiritual or divine power to perfect us or to make up for our sinfulness. Buddhism leaves it up to us. We got to work at it. There's stuff we got to do. And if we do it, and if we do it enough, we can reach, if not fully reach enlightenment, we can reach toward it, which is a full realization of our Buddha nature. So this is profound stuff to me. This is what got me interested. Because in a way, it's real simple. In another way, it's very, very demanding and challenging. But it's simple, because we got what we need, so we just need to clear the path in our heads, not out there. Okay? There's nothing I can do to you folks that's going to make me enlightened. There's nothing I can say. There's no pressure I can apply to make me enlightened. It's up to me, but we'll get to that. So what is Buddha nature? It's, first of all, at one level, it's basic awareness. It's pure alertness and awareness. But it's a little hard to describe Buddha nature because it's not made out of anything. It doesn't have characteristics or attributes because it's empty. So one of the ways we describe Buddha nature is that it's empty, emptiness. It means it's empty of form and substance. It's immaterial, it's spiritual. It's, in a way, it's not made of anything. Or maybe it's made of everything. I'm still not sure. Sorry about that. When I'm enlightened, I'll understand this, right? Okay, that's better. So it's the way Lama Kathy talks about emptiness, which I find helpful, it's limitlessness. Our Buddha nature is completely empty, but it's limitless. It's expansive, it's brilliant, it's profound, it's open, and there's no limits to it. Because it's not defined by anything, so it has no limits. Definitions are what limit us, right? It's spirit. Buddha, I don't think Buddha said spiritual, but that's how I think about it. Spiritual. It's not made out of anything, but it is something. It's empty, but it's not nothing. It's empty of definitions, limitations, constructs, empty of stuff. It's not made out of anything. Empty of texture and color and location and size. In some ways, it's easier to say what it is not than in what it is. So Buddha nature is empty, and what does that mean? It's easier to talk about what it's not. It's not material. It's not limited. It's not restricted. Okay. I think you can expect that even despite whatever I say about it here today, it might remain somewhat confusing and mysterious. And I say, fine, let it be. Because you can learn about it, struggle with it, think about it. That's the part of the path. Buddhism is very simple in some ways, and in other ways it's really complicated. So if you follow this path, you're stuck with a little bit of both. Maybe a lot of both. It's also said that Buddha nature, which we all have, can be described by the word clarity. Clarity, when we say the Buddha mind has clarity, it has the capacity to know and to be aware of and to sense. Clarity is another way of saying awareness. It's the mind's capacity to know, illuminate. It knows experience. It reveals experience to us. And illuminates. Without the clarity of the mind, we would have nothing. Nothing would appear. There'd be no awareness of anything at all. It's just in that moment, in any moment of quietness, when you're aware, when you're alert, that's clarity. There's something there. It's clarity that lets us know that right now we're sitting in this room right now, and you're listening and I'm talking. That's clear to the mind. It recognizes that. Even if we're confused, we can have clarity because the mind stays clear. And we can be aware that we're confused. Because the confusion comes from something else that we're going to get to. Recognize the confusion. I feel confused. Requires clarity. We can be in a state of emotional turmoil, not relaxed. We can be agitated. But the clarity of the mind says, look, you're agitated. You're distressed. Without clarity, we wouldn't know that. We'd have no way to know. There'd be distress, but no awareness of it, and therefore no capacity to do anything about it. It's one of the things that separates, I think, humans from, let's say, our pets, our dogs and cats, who will experience discomfort but don't have the clarity of awareness because they don't have the Buddha mind. They don't know. Not much they can do about it. Clarity doesn't mean that we're smart. It just means that we're aware. During meditation, like shamatha meditation, clarity is a part of the mind that can say, I'm breathing in, breathing out, aware of the moment. That's clarity. Kind of subtle, right? Is clarity clear as a concept? Is it clear? Yes and yeah, kind of and yes. And sort of some ways hard to define. The other thing they say about, and I say they, this of course comes from the teachings of the Buddha. So it's not hearsay, and it's not what the internet says, although, well, you can, never mind. It's called unimpededness. Now that's an awkward word, not impeded, the quality of being not impeded. What that means is the mind, the Buddha mind, the true nature. It's dynamic and it's unobstructed. It flows. Nothing is in the way. Nothing is in the way of it. It means the mind can move on from thing to thing and not be hung up or stopped. Unimpededness is a mind in which nothing interferes with anything else. Experience flows freely. Our awareness is unobstructed. And there's no fixed sense of self to get in the way. So what we're talking about here is not the way we normally experience life. This is our Buddha nature. Our underlying nature is unimpeded. Everything just flows and can just be. And the Buddha mind can accept experience from moment to moment as it changes, without dwelling on it, without resistance, without questioning, without analyzing, without doubting. It just is. It recognizes, takes in the flow of every moment just as it is. That's the perfected Buddha mind. This is not the way most of us see the world day to day, right? Where we get confused and we judge and we analyze. We'll get to that. So from this idea of impededness is that experience arises directly and clearly, with no ideas, no thoughts, no concepts to get in the way. Okay. This doesn't mean that we don't have emotions. What it means is we have the capacity to process emotion as it changes moment to moment and be clear about it and let it and be able to simply watch it come and go, be aware. Flow with it. It's really about flow, which is, again, a little hard to define. But that's the unimpededness of it. Things flow. And I think for people who have the rare person who's truly enlightened, that's the experience of life. Nothing impeded, nothing's getting in the way. Things are as they are and they flow. So there's the awareness of it and the ability to flow with it and let it all proceed on its own. It's a natural process. And it's what would happen automatically if it weren't for other things getting in the way. Awareness is sometimes and it's thought about as a mirror. I mean, just as an analogy. So a mirror is, in a sense, a mirror reflects everything. Everything that comes in front of the mirror is reflected, but it doesn't change the mirror, and nothing is distorted by it. If it's a good mirror, nothing's distorted. It's just there, but it doesn't change the mirror. So in the unimpeded flowing mind, whatever happens, nothing changes. The inner experience is stillness, awareness, clarity, and it never changes because it's undying. It's unborn and undying. So it's interesting to think, and maybe a little hard, find it a little hard to experience, but interesting to think that underneath whatever happens and whatever's going on in our minds, there is this calm, stable Buddha mind. And it's unchanging, unflinching, non-reactive. And it's just fine as it is. No improvements necessary, no improvements possible. All we can do is get in the way and mess it up. We can't make it any better. Because we don't need to, it's all we need. Right? Why you can't improve on it because it's all we need. All right, so that's Buddha nature. It's the human condition then that we not only have Buddha nature, we also have what I'm inclined to call it human nature, but let's call it psychology. And I think about it that way because I am a psychologist. It's our fate as human beings to, first of all, be born with this gift of Buddha nature, and also to be born with other aspects of the human mind that create psychology and that also create difficulties. Sometimes, in Buddhist terms, it's called the discursive or conditioned mind. Discursive means one thought after the next, busy, rambling, preoccupied with chatter. Discursive mind creates stories, fictions, dramas, worries, plans, all the stuff that occupies our mind. The discursive mind is the fundamental thing that drives it, is the belief that we exist not as unified Buddhas, but as separate individuals. You're going to hear this again and again and again here at KTC. It's fundamental teaching that the main problem And if there was an original sin, it would be this, but in Buddhism, it's not really sin, it's just the quality of the mind, is that we've come to believe that we're separate individuals and that we have something to prove and something to defend. And there's right and wrong, and there's you and me, black and white, liberal, conservative, right and left, all that. That's the fundamental thing. So from a psychological perspective, we believe we exist independently of everything else. Psychologically, we don't experience Buddha nature and the connection. And it creates a whole host of problems. A whole host of problems. In fact, from a Buddhist point of view, all the suffering that happens to human beings is because of this sort of misunderstanding, misperception of the way things are. Buddha nature is the way things are. Psychology, the discursive mind, is the way we think they are. So we tell ourselves stories about right and wrong and who's good and who's bad. We divide everything up into categories. We take the oneness of the Buddha mind and divide it into different types of Buddhism, different types of religion, groups that fight and conflict, disagree. And we spend a lot of our thoughts telling us that we are separate, and this is who we are, and this is what we believe. So much of our thinking has to do with our opinions, and our lives, what we have to do, what I'm going to do next. What are my plans? What are my worries? What are my concerns? What am I dealing with? It's all about the ego. Now, none of that is bad. That's who we are. That's part of the mind. It's part of the mind. It's not the Buddha mind. It's the human or psychological mind. All that's good because we need all that. We need thinking. We need planning. In some cases, we even need to know where we stand in this world. Maybe we need to know whether on a Sunday morning to go to church or come here. But the problem is when we take all those things too seriously. So there's no disrespecting the psychological mind, the discursive mind. It's absolutely part of the human condition. So that's the human condition, is the perfect Buddha mind, the imperfect psychological mind, discursive, busy mind. There's the Buddha mind that knows no distinctions between things, between anything. It's all unified. And the psychological mind that sees everything in clumps and pieces and bits and categories and groups and subgroups and sub-subgroups. And that is very hung up on me, and what's going to happen to me, and how do I survive, and how do I thrive, and how do I get what I want, and how do I never get what I don't want, all that stuff. It takes enormous amount of energy to fuel that constant drama of who I am, what I think I am, what I'm not, and how do I get along in this world? How do I make ends meet? How do I avoid disaster? How do I stop worrying about this war or that war? This and that. It takes a lot of energy. Okay. So this is interesting to me. This is very insightful, I think, on Buddha's part to begin to parcel this out. And he figured it out by meditating long hours for many years and watching his own mind and seeing. And he was observant of the world. He could see what made people suffer. Okay. So he says, deep down inside, there's nothing to suffer about. There's no cause. On another level, there's all these causes that we kind of end up creating. So if we want to learn to stop suffering, we've got to get to work. Okay, I'm sure you've heard this before, but the psychological discursive mind, metaphorically, is like the clouds that block the sun or block the pure blue sky like we got today. Can't see the sun, can't see the blue sky. We got clouds, obscurations. That could be our thoughts and our emotions running amok. So that's all we see. But you know, if you take an airplane trip, if you go up in an airplane, you get above the clouds, and holy, it's amazing. Open blue expanse, there we got it. Okay, so Buddha says each of us has this Buddha nature. Each of us, therefore, is a potential Buddha, or you might say is a Buddha, or maybe a Buddha in waiting, or a Buddha in training. That's us. And when we think about the Buddha represented in some of these statues here, that represents, all that represents our potential, our true potential. The Buddha is a human being, not just represents. Buddha is a human being who came into the world with obscurations, psychology, who overcame and became enlightened. So all this is about what our potential is. All this, I think, one way or another is a symbol of Buddha nature. That's why, to me, I think when we enter this room and you feel the vibe, it's nice. Things start to lighten. That's because all this is here to bring out our connection to our own deep Buddha nature. It's cool. That's why people like sitting in here. Okay. One of the things that Buddha talked about was called the four veils. I'll cover this briefly. The veils, again, have to do with the psychological mind and how the veils hide our true nature, right? That's what a veil does. A bride might wear a veil to hide her face until the groom can, see her. A veil. Obviously, you know what that is. Okay. So it's what hides things. So briefly, and there's this class, by the way, has a lot of material. Some of it I'm not going to cover. It's in the handouts or the outlines. And I will leave time for questions. The fundamental veil is called fundamental ignorance. The fundamental ignorance is that we have no idea that we have Buddha nature. So how could we not be confused if we don't even understand that our true nature exists at all? Buddha nature, then, fundamental ignorance is we have no idea about deep nature, and we have no idea that our belief in our separateness is illusory, that it's fake news. So if you completely believe in yourself as an individual and you fight for everything you want and you compete with everybody, then there you go. Good luck. But there's fundamental ignorance there. Buddha came into role, and Buddha's role in the world really historically has been, and he's not the only first, he's not the first or the only religious figure to point us in this direction, to say, you're missing the boat. I mean, you're busy all day long doing stuff, that's great. Running away from tigers and fighting for a living and deciding whether your spouse or you is right about this or that. It's great. It's the way things are. But you're missing the boat because ultimately it's all for naught. It's getting you nowhere. Hard to accept sometimes that all this stuff we're doing at a certain level, in terms of spiritual enlightenment, is getting us nowhere. But it helps, it tells us what we're doing wrong. It tells us where we need to work, okay? So I got into Buddhism because I was at a point in my life where my job was driving me crazy. And I took some time off so I could fix my head a little bit better and return to work, because I was not ready to retire. And that's what brought me to KTC. But I won't get into that. As I said, it's really not about me. So I tell myself, part of me thinks it's all about me, because that's the ego saying, well, what else is there? And I say, there's Buddha nature, and the ego goes, so, new? So? But I know it's there. I've experienced it too. There's also the veil of conceptual knowledge. That, I think it just has to do with we work so hard to understand and classify things that it hides our true nature. Now, I have a friend, and I love this guy. He's the sweetest guy, but he conceptualizes everything. All his experience is a matter of, what do you call this? This is called, I don't know how he does that. It's so weird to me. And I think it's an obscuration. I think he's hiding from his spiritual self. He grew up in a very, very traditional religious environment in Mexico, very Catholic. And at a certain age, he decided, not for me, but it was forced on him. And I think he conceptualized his way out of it. And you can do that. You can rationalize it and say, well, no, this can't be true about what they say. And sometimes we're taught things as kids that maybe aren't true. But nonetheless, you can't conceptualize. If you over-conceptualize and over-rationalize and overthink, you'll be hiding yourself from your Buddha nature. Because that's not what Buddha nature is. Okay. There's the afflictive emotions. Afflictive emotion really is just, you could think about it as any emotion that creates discomfort, stress, distress. So things like anger, jealousy, depression, anxiety, things like that. And the emotion, and the mind, the psychological mind is really good at generating emotion, fear, anger, resentment, jealousy. So those emotions, too, can really get in the way because you become so focused. The emotion seems so absorbing. Emotion says, do something. Emotion says, pay attention to me. Emotion says, don't relax. You got stuff to do. You can't relax. You got to go do something. You got to fix something. There's a problem here. And sometimes there is. But if that's all you got, if that's all you know, then you're stuck with emotion, which never stops, like thinking. Constant, constant, constant. You can't get off the treadmill until you realize, what about Buddha nature? Okay, I'm going to, now, so the only way out of this, really, is through Dharma practice. So when we say Dharma, as you may know the word Dharma, but Dharma is a word to just say everything that Buddhists do to reduce their level of suffering. Every single form of Dharma practice ultimately is a way to clear out the veils, clear away the clouds, and remind us, put us in touch directly as possible with our Buddha nature. It's simple that way. This is who you really are. Your psychological self creates clouds and confusion, which are based on something that has a certain human necessity, but is not ultimately true. So we get it out of the way. But you don't wait on. If we knew how to do that already, we would have done it. So we need people like the Buddha to come along and say, well, this is how you do it. It's not enough to say, don't worry, what me worry. That's Alfred E. Newman. Right? What we worry. It's not enough to say that. Chill out. What are you worried about? What do you mean, what am I worried about? The world's on fire. We got wars going on. What do you mean, don't worry? How, then? It's only the how. Okay. So Buddhism is one answer to the how. It's not the only answer. It's our answer here. And actually, Buddhism has lots of answers to it because there are lots of ways to meditate. But all the Dharma practices that's what they're for. That is simply what they're about. It's to clear the clouds, the obscurations. Open yourself up, your mind, your heart, to your true nature and let it be. Because again, you don't have to dig it up. You don't have to create it. It's there. You simply have to get out of its way. Uncover. Okay. I thought my watch was calling me. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all the Dharma practices, of course, because there's lots and lots and lots of those. But there is something called the 3 yanas that's part of the course material. Now, I won't dwell on that either because we're short on time. And also, there's a whole separate class on the three yanas. And I think Sally was the one teaching it 2 or 3 weeks ago. So eventually you'll get it. But this is an overview. The three yanas is basically 3 kind of different approaches to Buddhism, to practice. These approaches actually evolved separately over long geographical distances and long time frames. But in Tibet, I think maybe as much as anywhere in Tibet, these 3 traditions, these 3 approaches came together in Tibet, of all places, remote Tibet. So part of our lineage, this Karma Kagyu tradition that we have, embodies or includes all 3 approaches. We have Karma Theksam Choling. The Theksam means the 3 approaches. It's built into our name, and we're here to practice and teach them all. The Hinayana, it's the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. The 3 yanas. You want to learn about them? The Hinayana is the first place we start. The purpose of the Hinayana it's talked about as the path of personal liberation. So we start a bit selfishly, because that's how we begin. You can't go from selfish, because we're all selfish in a way. You can't go from that to the next step without first recognizing that we have selfish needs. The thing that brought me to KTC was I was suffering. That was selfish, but it was healthy to do something about it, right? Self-interest is not a bad thing. So Hinayana is really embodied by the practice of shamatha or shine meditation, where we learn to calm the mind, to put thoughts in the background, and to relax. We begin to tame the mind. That's a personal benefit to us. So that's the first level. And it's not to be dismissed just because it's an entry level. Everything has a beginning, right? If you're building, when they built the Empire State Building, they didn't start on floor 100 or whatever, right? You always start at the beginning. And it's profound because it teaches you can actually have some control over your mind. You can be the boss of your mind instead of the other way around. Really important. Then we have the Mahayana. In the Mahayana, we take the next step because Buddhism teaches it's not enough that we work on our own liberation. We want, ideally, to be concerned about the liberation and the suffering of all people. And that's what the Buddha dedicated his life to. Once he became enlightened, for the next 40 to 45 years, he did nothing but teach this stuff because he wanted everyone to be free. Here, the basic Mahayana meditation is called Tonglen. If you haven't been introduced to that, you will. It's taking and receiving. It's a mental exercise where we imagine taking on the suffering of others and giving out in return, giving out all that we have that's good and whole. So we take in some of their suffering and confusion and give out loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom. It's a mental exercise. It trains us in thinking about others as well as ourselves. It trains us in the idea that we can help people ease their suffering without having to actually damage ourselves. Because we can take on the suffering of other people and still be okay. Because remember, the Buddha mind, true awareness, Buddha mind, never changes. Unborn, undying. So if I am with somebody when they're suffering, that doesn't change my Buddha nature one bit. But it does feel good to help people. And compassion helps remind us who we really are. So that's how that's another way that we unveil. We unveil because we put aside this notion that as individual selves we're supposed to be selfish, that we're all that matters. And as we practice compassion, we realize, hey, we're just not whole unless we're connected to people. It really doesn't, it feels good to be compassionate. It feels great. And it feels lonely and empty to be selfish. So that starts to shake things up. It's like, there is really something else here. It's not just me, 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 I, me, mine. So that briefly is Mahayana, practice of compassion. Last one is the Vajrayana. It also focuses on benefiting others, but it has additional techniques that involve mantra meditation, which, as it sounds, involves chanting mantras. These practices are also use visualization, where we visualize deities, and these deities represent our true Buddha nature, which is bright, light, expansive, illuminated, uncluttered. And we actually visualize them in detail. So the one that I practiced is Chen Rezik, who's up here, over here. Chen Rezik is considered to be the Buddha of kindness and compassion. There are other Buddha deities that embody love, healing, nurturing. We visualize them not only as external objects, but we visualize them as connected to us, inseparable from us, and we actually imagine taking them into us. And the idea there is, well, that's who we are anyway. So these are techniques that help us realize what's really here. And again, every Dharma practice, it's all about recognizing what's really there. It's all about exposing and our Buddha nature, giving us experience of what it means. And once you as you experience your Buddha nature, it's pretty darn cool. I mean, it feels good. It's because it's not worried. It's light. It's bright. It's very optimistic. And there's a sense of coming home. It's like, I've been away so long. And that's the sense I have. Like when I meditate and I get lost in thought and I come back, it's like, welcome home. Welcome home. Traveler, you had to go, you couldn't help it, your mind wandered, you took a trip, now you're back. And that's what all these practices do. So when you do these visualization practice, it's like the deities as what they embody. It's not unfamiliar. It's familiar in a way. Maybe we didn't know it, but it's partly part of who and what we are. So anyway, all stuff can be learned. Of course, it's learned. It's taught and it's learned. That's how everybody practices. You learn it. So you can learn about shamatha practice. We have deity meditation classes here, or not there. Occasionally there are classes where they're taught, and on a regular basis, these meditations are also practiced in groups. And you can go to the website and see the schedule and learn about all that. But it is part of our mission to be available to teach all three of those, or let's say approaches from all three of the yanas. Okay? But we always start with the Hinayana and Shine or Shamatha meditation, and we do that every week, as you probably know. All right. If I haven't already said it, I want to make it clear that those who develop their Buddha nature automatically become more loving, more kind, and more compassionate. That's because that's how we normally are when we're not busy being obscured by our psychological nature of ego. That's just the way that's essentially the way we are. So you might have noticed when you feel in a really good mood, when you just feel relaxed and in a good mood, like you feel probably like being more outgoing, more generous, more giving, more connected. Whereas maybe when you feel anxious, angry, depressed, you want to feel more like you're withdrawing, like there's just you. So there's something about about that connectedness that really makes us kind, loving, relaxed, giving. We give because there's really nothing to lose, because the Buddha mind has no limits, right? Buddha nature has no limits. There's nothing to hoard, nothing to keep to ourselves, because everything is everything, and it's all interconnected. And that can become part of the experience. So I think I'm out of material. I wanted to see if there are any questions, because we always leave time for questions. If there are, you can go to the mics and ask, and I'll do my best to answer if I can.
Thank you for your talk. It was very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's say that I'm already compassionate and connected and all that, but I really need your advice on how I can work on my afflicting emotions. What in your experience worked out for you to, tame that side of your mind?
Okay. Okay, nice question. Next. There's a few answers. So let me take it one little thing at a time. I think really what Buddhism teaches is to understand the root of a lot of our emotional discomfort or unhappiness. There's probably, from a Buddhist perspective, behind afflictive emotions is some kind of mistake in thinking or understanding. It probably has to do with selfish beliefs, and by selfish, I just mean ego-involved beliefs about who and what we are. I think there's a lot of value to spending some time, and this is one way in which thinking is good, and why it's really good that we have a mind that can analyze and think, even though we do it too much. What are the assumptions? What are the underlying assumptions to your discomfort? I find myself uncomfortable about, I get jealous, for instance, from a greedy self, and I think about what about that greed? Do I really need that? Now, I'm not going to ask you personal questions about where yours is coming from. I can get sad because I feel like I don't have enough, or maybe I have enough now, but tomorrow I won't. I worry, and I look at that and say, how realistic is that? I can worry about not having enough, and yet I've always had enough. Or I can meditate and do a form of meditation that gets me in touch with my fullness, and then I feel less deprived. So ultimately, from a Buddhist perspective, there are meditation techniques that can address all of that. Now, part of it too is to realize that you're human, where none of us is enlightened, so there's going to be difficult emotions that are there sometimes. They're going to arise, just like thoughts. Part of it is notice it and just let it be. So Buddhists like to say, or some do, just because I think something doesn't mean I have to believe it. So you could also say, just because I feel something doesn't mean I need to dwell on it. In meditation, for instance, you might experience a moment of discomfort. Maybe it's physical. And you learn over time if you simply rest, watch, remain alert, don't try and shove it away, don't make it an enemy. It may subside or pass. Emotions are all over the place. So you might find that you're anxious, and if you just hang in there with it kind of really depends. So I'm trying to cover a lot of bases here. Sometimes it subsides. I notice emotions coming up totally out of the blue. Like I'm feeling really relaxed, and all of a sudden, something that feels like anxiety comes along. I have no idea why. And I've learned to try not to get alarmed by it, not to get worried about my worry, not get anxious about anxiety, not get pissed because I'm angry, and see if it'll subside. So there's that too. The other part of it, just as at some point, a lot of people can have a lot of depression or a lot of anger or a lot of fear. And Buddhist practice may not be enough. So sometimes that's an answer to afflictive motion, is professional consultation. I'm not at all saying that about you. I'm covering the realm. I'm trying to cover the spectrum from in terms of what comes to be when you ask that. So part of it is like trying not to take it too seriously, but it also, when the emotion arises, take some time to see what's going on with it. Is there a connection with what you're thinking? Or is it there all the time? If it's there, if it's there all the time, then it might be a need to even go. Buddhism may not have the answer for you. I mean, Lama Kathy stresses this a lot, that sometimes we got to know where this is helpful and where it's not. So it just depends. I don't know if that answers it or not, but that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, it helped. Thank you so much.
Okay. Feeling better now?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Stefan. I'm a newbie, and I think conceptually I'm comfortable. I don't want to say that I understand, but conceptually, like the oneness of Buddha nature, that seems to be something I can work toward because I can hold that someplace. I don't want to pretend I understand. My skepticism, or at least I struggle more with the eternal. That Buddha nature is eternal, right? Because I have Buddha nature, I'm not eternal. You know, I've come to appreciate impermanence, but I don't have a way to conceptualize that in a way that I'm comfortable with yet.
So, I mean, in some ways that might be more of like a high-level skill, and I don't know that one needs to come to that, to deal with that, to be a lot more happy. Because who knows? And there's no way to prove it. There's no way to prove it, that exists. So I like to think about it as something that's so profound. I also like to think about Buddha nature, even if it's not everlasting, that within this lifetime never changes. So I rely on that a little bit more. Like there's something inside that's even keeled, unruffled, unbothered, unchanging, not bipolar, not riddled by up and down emotions or random thoughts. It's just there. So I think about it more that way. I don't know what to say about understanding true eternity. You know, that's beyond me, honestly. So I'm not surprised that it doesn't make sense. But I don't know that it's necessary. I mean, if you're really bothered by extreme fears of death, that would be comforting. But I don't really know what it means to say our Buddha nature is undying. But I do believe, I mean, obviously, or maybe it's not so obvious, but a lot of Buddhists do believe in reincarnation. That there's something about pure awareness that's just everywhere. It's part of the universe and goes back to the universe, and that part's not dying. And that at some point in life, there'll be some remnant of that comes back in another form. It won't be you, but it'll be a remnant of your consciousness that exists and may float back into another body on this planet or another planet. But that's really beyond me. It's certainly beyond this talk. I'm not an expert at that. I have some skepticism or doubts about it. I have not studied it that much. I feel like I have so far to go in just staying peaceful and calm day to day that I don't think about that so much. It's kind of me. I feel like in some ways I'm still, if not in elementary school, maybe in junior high. And you're talking about stuff that's graduate school.
Yeah, and I'm in pre-K in terms of the stuff. So let me ask you, so when you think of Buddha nature, do you think of it as something that is, this is kind of dangerous because I know about the self and the clinging to self, but do you think of Buddha nature as being something that's individuated, or do you think of Buddha nature as being something that's a collective?
I've become more and more to think about it as something that's everywhere at all times, collective, and that we sort of tap into it, awareness. And I don't know for sure, and I've wondered about that. I don't know for sure that that's how the Buddha taught it. But it feels like it's here, there, and everywhere. But it also, at some level, doesn't matter because all you can experience, everything you experience, can only be experienced through the mind that you have in this life. Right now, everything's experienced through the mind. So you exist out there. I trust that you, in some form, your body and all those molecules, all that stuff, exist in some ways apart from me. But I believe that, but it's also all interrelated too. But what I was going to say is the only way I have to experience whatever is out there is through my mind that creates images of it here. Because I have no way to experience you other than what my mind is making of your molecules, the sounds you make, the photons that bounce off your body. So part of me says it doesn't really matter, practically.
Thank you.
That's me. I'm trying to simplify things a little bit. I'm not saying that you should. I think it's a really cool question. It's really a little bit beyond me, I have to say. David, I think this will be the last one. I don't want to go too far over.
Thank you much, Paul. I'll be real quick. As you were teaching, I kept thinking of the phrase, now I forget. What we see is either what it seems or what it is.
Yeah. I don't know if we have the capacity to see what is. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, to me, it seems like everything is what we seem or how we interpret things. But it's interesting in terms of Buddha nature. There is a recognition process. Somehow when we meditate, we recognize it. But it feels like it's not interpreted in the way the rest of life is in terms of opinions. And so I don't know. But ultimately, it's what we're stuck with is what we experience. But because we have Buddha nature, keep in mind, our Buddha nature it's very open to all kinds of experience. It's got clarity. It's got sharpness and purity. So we have the capacity to experience all sorts of things, including our own capacity to experience things. I know that I know. I sense that I sense. And so even if I'm stuck with what seems to be, the clear Buddha mind is able to notice, take in, experience so much. And then it's like, well, what do we do with all that? That's the best I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Glad you're here. Well, you're always here. That's cool. It's cool. All right. Well, I appreciate your attention, being here, your questions. But we run a little bit over, so it's time to wrap it up. On the other side of this sheet, we always do a dedication of merit. So let's just say that together in English. By this merits, may all attain omniscience. May defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. May the courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Shamanhabharava, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas that I may follow in their path, we dedicate all this virtue. Well, folks, happy Easter. Well, if you celebrate one way or another, or if you used to celebrate and you'll be with your family, or if you just do something else.